Hello there, it's Chloe butting in before the episode really starts to tell you that I'm on the hunt for some great guests to interview for the show. If you own or work at a retailer who sells online and you have an interesting e-commerce angle you'd like to share with our listeners, then I would love for you to apply to be a guest on the show. Maybe you've just done a really cool marketing test, your product is groundbreaking, or you've nailed one of those tricky little omnichannel challenges. Well, we interview retailers from around the world who've done such things, retailers who have annual sales from just £50,000 up to many, many millions. Applying is super simple. Just go to ecommercemasterplan.com/guest, fill in the short form. There's only 5 questions. Most of them are about who you are. And then the difficult one, in inverted commas, is to tell me why you think you make a great guest, which hopefully shouldn't be too taxing. Go on, it won't take you very long. I'd love to chat to you if you think you're a candidate. And just head to ecommercemasterplan.com/guest and get your application in today.
It's the e-commerce masterplan podcast, here to help you solve your marketing problems and grow your e-commerce business. Cutting through the hype to bring you inspiration and advice from the e-commerce sector and beyond. Here's your host, Chloe Thomas.
Hello and welcome to our latest podcast. I'm Chloe and it is great to have you listening. In today's episode, we get into the world of UX, that's user experience, and look at how you can go about improving the user experience on your website to increase your sales. Now, without the sponsors, the podcast wouldn't be possible, so please do take a moment to check them out. This episode is brought to you by SendPro Online from Pitney Bowes. Save time and money no matter what you ship or mail with the SendPro Online software. Print shipping labels and stamps right from your desk and access discounted rates for as low as $4.99 per month. Try it free for 30 days and get a free £10 scale when you visit pb.com/masterplan. That's pb.com/masterplan. And now to introduce today's guest expert. Matt Isherwood is the author of Designing E-commerce Websites, 66 Guidelines, a UX design handbook for great online shops. Over the years, Matt's worked at the BBC on One Fine Stay and now specialises in working with growing startups. If this all sounds a little familiar, it's because back in 2017, we had Matt on the show, episode 111, to talk about the first edition of this book. Now in edition number 2, it's grown from 54 guidelines to 66, so it's going to be well worth getting your hands on edition number 2. Hello, Matt.
Hi, Chloe.
How are you doing?
Yeah, very good, thank you.
Thanks. It was great to be chatting to you again. And I've just given our listeners kind of like a little overview of why you're on the show today. But since we last caught up back in 2017, how have things changed in your e-commerce world? How have things been?
So not hugely. I guess I'm continuing to do a similar thing that I was doing back then, which is UX design for a lot of growing startups and now a few bigger clients as well. And generally that means researching their existing website, understanding what real users are actually doing on there, and then making suggestions for redesigns, how we can improve it, generally fix problems and issues with it. I guess one of the major changes is everything is a lot more mobile. I guess this is a theme you see more and more, but it is just impressive looking at the analytics of a lot of these sites that I work with. Just, it's regularly hitting like 70% mobile traffic on a lot of these kind of sites. So everything really is mobile first. And then, on top of that, I've been working on, the second edition of my book.
And what's led you to create edition number 2? Was it the fact that there were more things you needed to add in because of what you've seen and learned over the last couple of years?
Yeah, that was definitely a factor. So I guess the thing with the first version of the book, so I've self-published it, and I saw the first version very much, being someone who's worked in the web for all my career, I very much saw it as kind of a beta release and something to put out there and learn from and see what worked and what didn't. And, I think in anyone who's written anything, which I know you have, you pretty much, as soon as you release something, you instantly see 100 ways you can improve it. So that's part of it. So that motivation to think, right, I can do a better job. I've learned more. I kind of end up almost rewriting everything as well, just trying to make these things as clear as possible, trying to illustrate the points as clear as possible. And then, adding more content. So I've learned a few more bits. Also adding further reading to everything. So one thing I just wanted to show that so with every guideline in the book, there's now a further reading link. So if you're really interested in that area, you can go off and learn more. I just wanted to show it as kind of all based on, not just me saying this, there is other things to back it up and more that you can get out of it. And so the book can start as a good starting point and a beginner's guide to understand how you design an e-commerce website, but also can be a jumping off point to really go deeper and learn a lot more if you want to.
And I guess, like you said, you had the beta version, then you've improved it with this one. It's, from my experience of writing books, is I don't think as an author you're ever 100% happy with the book you publish. But if you were to try and be 100% happy with that book, it would never get published. So you have to stop at some point and go, actually, this should be out there. Nothing's wrong with it. I just need to get it out there so as it can actually help people, which was the whole point of writing the book in the first place.
Yeah, exactly. And I guess the other thing, being someone, if you're involved in a subject area a lot more, you can get really particular about making sure everything's exactly right. And you realize actually it's still really valuable to people who are beginners and don't know anything about this. So you can get carried away in making sure everything's perfect. But yeah, I'd say, it's hard to be 100%. I'm definitely over 90% happy with this though.
Oh yeah, I think you have to at least be 90% happy.
Yeah, I'm well over that now. But I'm not planning on touching it for a while. I'm very happy with how it is to put out there. And I think it's a big improvement on the last one, but I think it should hold its own for a few years now.
I'm sure it will. Well, look, one of the reasons you've rewritten it, you've created the second edition, is because things have changed. So what's new?
A few things. Like I say, mobile coming into its own really, and going from just like a thing that even a few years ago people were talking about as a channel that people would, users are going to come on it, but they won't buy on that. They'll still buy on their desktop. Well, now they're buying on their mobiles as well, as much as anything. And so I've got in a few tips that are kind of related to that, some not so. An interesting one as well that's maybe less related to the mobile thing is the role of video in e-commerce. You see that as another sort of trend of people trying to put video and that extra value into their sites, but maybe getting it a bit wrong. So, for example, on landing pages, I've worked with some sites who, on their landing page or their home page, they're sort of sticking front and center a video a big video that's maybe quite long that explains a lot about the brand or a lot about the products are on offer, but it requires the user to click it. And of all the sort of sites I've done research on, so rarely do users ever click a longish video on a home page, because at that point they're just in the mode of, I just want to find out what you do. I just want to find out, are you the right site for me? I just want to get to the next step. It's very much an introductory experience. And so video that works well on a home page, but the sites I've seen pull it off well, just use those kind of 10, 15 second ones that are just looping, auto-playing, quickly giving the user a sense of something. And maybe if they can, if you can explain a product that quickly, that's great. But it's really about setting the scene at that stage. The time to use more detailed video is in product details pages, where people will click and will, or tap, and will learn a bit more, because at that point they're a bit more bought in, a bit more engaged into the product they're interested in and want to actually learn about how it works and all of its features.
That kind of side of video, because often if I've got someone who's thinking about doing video, I will suggest they don't try and create the perfect brand explainer video as their first attempt, because those are so hard to create. Whereas a quick video that explains your product is so much easier to create. And if what you're saying is where video has impact is in those easier to create videos that are actually about the product, then it's kind of a win-win, isn't it? You get to be a bit lazy on the video production side and do the easy stuff first, and it makes the best impact in terms of UX.
Yeah, I think so. I think you're right. Because you can end up needing a big budget to do something that's really gloriously shows the vision you want. But when you're just showing how a product works, that has instant understandable value, especially if your product is in any way a bit fiddly and hard to show, through still images, and there's a benefit to showing it actually working. Like, video can really come into its own. And another little tip around video that a lot of people just don't do is they'll just have a play button on the video without telling people how long the video is. I think it's still really important just to make sure the timestamp is shown, because one of the fears people have about clicking something is it's any click on the web, as small as this might sound, but we all do it as users. Any click on a website, particularly a new website you've gone onto, is a commitment and a little bit of a leap into the dark. And so if you don't know how long it is, you might be clicking play on something that's 10 minutes and you're like, I'm not going to watch that. Whereas if you can see, it's only a 30-second or a minute long video, you should increase the chances of people actually clicking play.
I love that extra little mini bonus tip there, but one which I suspect makes a huge impact.
Yeah, really small thing, really easy to do as well.
So you mentioned about how people are using video badly. Would you say, though, that video is one of the things that ought to be on our 2019 to-do lists, to at least investigate and see if there's a place for it?
So I think it's in its early stages, but I think we're obviously now seeing generations of people who are super comfortable with video, social media, auto-playing videos and things, and the likes of Snapchat and Instagram, videos becoming a huge part of it. So it's there, it's part of the web landscape. It's going to be an important thing. It's just think about how it can actually add value and isn't too much of a kind of big sort of grand enterprise for yourself, just because a lot of these videos that people interact with every day are actually really practical and are just doing things that are, solving a need, not trying to be a Hollywood blockbuster or something.
Well, yeah, and the tech does not need to be difficult either, does it? There's a very low barrier to entry these days to create video content.
Yeah, we've pretty much all got great video cameras on our phones now, so yeah, it's all very possible.
Before we just end up completely going into the world of video, I'm going to take you back to mobile, because I know a lot of the listeners are going to talk about mobile, please talk about mobile. You mentioned the fact that now lots and lots of e-commerce sites are so heavily mobile traffic focused. Have we now reached the point where we should be expecting similar conversion rates on desktop and tablet, or is it still normal, in inverted commas, to expect the mobile conversion rate to be lower?
It depends a bit on what you're selling. The more expensive the product you're selling and the more sort of fiddly, I think there'll always be that want to go and do it on desktop. So if you're selling complex services or things like holidays or things where there's several bits of customization to do, and you only really need to buy it once, then I think you're going to always see the conversion rate be higher. And if you're selling things that for some reason are specific to desktop, like one thing I've been working with recently is a web hosting company, and so it's very much the e-commerce model, but it's something that people just do on their desktop. Maybe this might change in the future, but for now, that's how it is. Whereas if you're selling relatively cheap things, relatively commoditized things, anything around fashion, increasingly people are very comfortable with just like buying it quickly. So the cheaper you are, the more you would expect those conversion rates to be equal, if not potentially higher, because just you can make the checkout process even quicker on mobile now with the likes of, if you integrate with the likes of Apple Pay or Android Pay, checkout becomes painless. It's just a tap and you've got everything. So that's become more appealing than waiting to go onto a desktop.
Gosh, I hadn't thought of it that way. I thought about the fact that Apple Pay and Android Pay and all the rest of them are making it easier, and they're like, finally, mobile payments is not a painful thing to do. But it hadn't occurred to me that they could make it so easy that the conversion rate would be higher than it is on desktop.
I think we're going to see that. And I think for some very certain categories and certain sites, we're possibly already there. It's one of those things that's kind of, depends, but it's often at this stage of where we are right now, there's often room for improvement on mobile on most sites, I find. Another example of that is filtering. So I say the one other area where the desktop experience is still superior is when you're on a product listing page and sort of browsing through products. And the way that on a desktop, you've got that more space to be able to view products and often view the filters running down the left-hand side, say, and do that kind of proper comparison browsing, there, which is a bit of a struggle on mobile. And I think sites have been slow catching up with how to make mobile that bit easier to filter on. Often people miss the filters button. And if you're a site with hundreds or thousands of products, those filters are going to be really important to actually help people get to a manageable set of results that they can actually choose something from. So finding ways to put them in front of users a bit easier and not just have them as a button that can get scrolled past and missed is becoming really important as well.
So for those who are listening out there who are desperate to improve their mobile user experience and thus their conversion rate, the key places to look would still remain the checkout process and how people filter or scroll or get through the product listings?
Yeah, those are two of the big hitters, absolutely.
And I was going to say, and is there any good argument not to put in Apple Pay, Android Pay, etc.?
Yeah, I think less and less so. I think the challenge is actually going to be, if you're selling something where you need the user to then log in later, and maybe, so again, a classic thing that comes to mind a lot, I've worked in travel a bit, and so holidays and travel, and say you've got tickets or anything like that. In that case, the user may almost certainly is going to need to come back and log in. And so you might want to get them to create an account with you, and you might need that as a process that's a lot more important. So for those kind of sites, less so. But again, like fast sort of fashion or like commoditized things or like small items, cheaper items, like it makes total sense. Their address is already there. They don't have to enter that. Like the most painful thing really for users on mobile is filling in fields and filling out forms and entry. And that's where they make all the mistakes. So the more you can save that for them, I think one of the challenges is going to be how there's a potential growth in options now, and it's how you display all those options and how people can pay on your site without sort of filling it with a field of a ton of buttons in front of people and making sure you're picking the right ones. So the first port of call is often to look at your analytics and see if you've got a particular audience well represented in mobile that you should start with, whether you should start with Apple and Android Pay and see which ones work out best for you.
Got yeah. Okay, cool. So have we covered the key points on mobile there? Because I know the listeners are interested in that subject, so I don't want to move on if there's still, a burning top tip we should be talking about.
Yeah, I think so. I think one other is when you're on a product details page and you've got a product that has variations, so maybe size or color comes in various things. I think another thing you're seeing increasingly on sites that do this well is getting rid of drop-down menus and, sort of having to click on a drop-down menu or tap on a drop-down and then scroll through and find the right size or thing you want and, load it and then check it's in stock. Like increasingly, they're just being bought out as buttons, so shown straight on the page. So you can instantly see which sizes are in stock or which colors are in stock. And if not, they kind of grayed out. And that just makes all that, it's a lot easier for tap. It saves the number of taps that you've got to do to get it on mobile. It also benefits desktop because it's just that bit more visual. Plenty of sites are now doing this, moving to that world, seeing the likes of Nike have been doing that for a while, even with, a long list of shoe sizes. Burberry, Michael Kors, they're all good sites for doing this really nicely, making that product details page that bit more mobile friendly. So it's just quick to be able to tap the option. And like I say, see if something's in stock or not.
Like you say, I always think that's actually a better experience 9 times out of 10 on desktop because you can just see at a glance. Because a lot of us, if the size 12's not around, we might go for the 14, or if the shoe size 7's not there, we might go for the 8. So, if you really want it, you may well go for the one that's going to pinch a bit or the one that's going to be a bit loose. So it enables customers to make those decisions.
Yeah. And just remove, and again, where you remove taps and clicks, you're just making that process a bit easier and that bit smoother.
Excellent. Okay. Having had a flick through the book, because I have a copy already. One of the reasons I can tell you probably need one is you talk about order confirmation pages, which I love the potential of an order confirmation page. So you're kind of preaching to the choir in terms of me, but many of our audience may well not be using their order confirmation pages as well as they could be. So do you want to tell us a bit about that, Matt?
Yeah, so it's one of those areas that's obviously often last on the list, right, of things to think about when you want to improve your site. It doesn't directly seem to relate to conversions, but what it can do is a good, well-designed order confirmation page can save you on a lot of those kind of customer service questions and follow-ups and sort of, customer issues and complaints they might have. There's still a lot of sites out there that just present you when you bought with just like, thank you, done, you'll get an email. And then back to shopping or something, as if many people are actually ready to go back to shopping. They've just paid. The chances are it's the one action they probably aren't going to do. So thinking a lot more about what is the information that a user wants to see. Often it's like reassurance at this stage, just reassure people, show them their order again, confirm, here it is, here's what you ordered, here's the address we're sending it to. So people are not afraid that, everyone can have the odd moment where they think, oh, did I enter the right thing there? Did I get this 100% right? So it gives them a quick opportunity. If something is wrong, they could then get in touch with you straight away and they can potentially solve it before it goes through any of the process of actually getting shipped out. Also just including like the most regular FAQs. A lot of this designing this page will be around what do you know are the main customer complaints you're getting or the main questions you get from customers after. And there'll often be some like key FAQs you can surface on this page and make really clear so that you aren't preempting, not everyone's going to read them. There'll be some people who will always get in touch or won't read them. But at least by putting it there, and if you can design it in such a clear way that you're not just chucking loads of information on there, but checking the most relevant FAQs at that point, they should be able to self-serve and help themselves. And often users these days do want to just solve it themselves. They don't want to have to go on a call or something or have to write off a long email explaining everything they've done or whatever. So, where possible, try and think through how much in the future, your future self will thank you because you'll be able to save yourself a lot of time on those kind of hassles and complaints.
Well, that's the thing, isn't it? It's kind of it gives you in two ways. One, it saves you the time and the money of your customer services team to deal with the questions and the ones that could be avoided and all the rest of it, because you can put the information right there for people and let them self-serve. But then also, because you're giving the customer a better experience, they're more likely to come back and order from you in the future. So it's kind of the starting point of order number 2.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So thinking about cancellation processes and returns processes, are standard things that people expect to have now. And if you've got them and you've bothered to kind of put together a good returns process, then people are going to love that and are going to be really happy to see that you're there. And yeah, you don't forget about the people who become your customers, because they are the ones who have converted with you already. They've done the hard step, which is becoming a customer once. You want to hang on to them.
Most definitely. And Matt, another area which you cover in the book, which many people might not consider as part of UX, is the plethora of delivery options. We've got a whole load of payment options these days. We've also got an awful lot of different ways to get that product delivered to us. So have you got anything interesting you've picked up around that area?
So I guess it's another area where I've seen growth in is around order collection and kind of picking up from store, either a branded store or, news agents or kind of corner shops, which is increasingly an option. I think it's one of those things that's arisen because possibly due to the over success of the likes of Amazon, people are at work, right? And they can't necessarily get things delivered to home. And also a lot of workplaces are now getting fed up with signing for tons of parcels and packages. So now you have to look to other options. And so a delivery to a local location is becoming a more and more useful thing for people. So just one of the things to think about there is where you first introduce that. I mean, you introduce the idea, you can tell people it's something they do, but where you actually get people to make that selection. And I would tend to recommend not worrying about it until the basket stage or the checkout stage. Because what can happen, there's a danger potentially in some sites who introduce this, and this is generally ones who have bricks and mortar stores and do it further up. They can start getting people to select it at the product page level, at the product details page. And what you can end up with then is accidentally some users putting one product to be delivered and then another product to be picked up, and end up with a complete messy sort of experience in their basket where they've click different things at different points, and you end up with multiple things going on. So where possible, just present that at the basket stage to give a sort of potentially a price estimate, and then go into the detail of where they're going to do it as they fill out the checkout. One thing that can be useful to have earlier on is like a stock checker, but you don't have to. That can just be literally checking stock on the product page level if you have a bricks and mortar store. But it doesn't have to actually allow them to do the selection at that stage. It's better to leave all the kind of fiddly stuff around the address or where you do it in one place, so they know they've got it right at one location. A site that do this really well is John Lewis in the UK. They seem to have put a lot of money into really redesigning their checkout flow and providing a really good delivery option, collection options.
E-commerce Master Plan is supported by some of the greatest companies in the e-commerce sector. Here's a reminder of who they are.
Don't waste any more time waiting in line to send mail and packages. With SendPro Online from Pitney Bowes, you can send packages and mail without leaving your office for as low as $4.99 per month. And because you're an e-commerce master plan listener, you'll receive a free 30-day trial to get started, plus a free £10 scale shipped right to your door to help you accurately weigh your packages. Save time and money no matter what you send with this new offer for SendPro Online. Starting at only $4.99 per month, you can print shipping labels and stamps from your own printer, easily compare rates using the online software, gain access to special USPS savings for letters and priority mail shipping, plus track all of your shipments and get email notifications when they have arrived. Go to pb.com/masterplan to access this special offer. Get a free 30-day trial and a free £10 scale to get started. That's pb.com/masterplan. Experience the better way to ship with a free trial of SendPro Online from Pitney Bowes.
It's time for the top tips round.
Okay, now after all those great top tips around the world of UX for our order confirmation pages, our baskets, our mobile activity, and of course those video tips right at the very beginning, it's time for us to now get in to the normal top tips, the top tips we do in every episode. So Matt, are you ready to do your top tips?
Yeah, I think so.
Marvellous. Okay, so the book top tip first up. If everyone listening to this podcast agreed to take Friday off and read a book to make their business better, which book would you recommend?
So it's not directly e-commerce, but it's one that I think is really useful. I read it recently and it gave me tons of ideas. It's one called Made to Stick. It's by Chip and Dan Heath. And it basically takes you through how to build. A lot of it's around building brand messages that stick, and sort of a bit of a formula for how to kind of create things that people are actually going to notice, and stories and pictures that people are going to remember, how to kind of cut through and avoid kind of waffle and kind of come up with something that's actually going to be meaningful. It gave me a lot of inspiration.
And it's like you cannot do UX if you don't have a copy of that book on your bookshelf, in my mind.
Yeah, it definitely goes hand in hand. The two do complement each other well.
Yeah, it's a fundamental bellwether book, I suppose. It should always be there, shouldn't it? Okay, the traffic top tip then. Which marketing method do you either prize above all others or think doesn't get the press it deserves?
It's probably an obvious one, but one I think from my point of view is just the sort of benefits of creating content and SEO. So I don't have an e-commerce business myself, but I have my own business and I write content. And what I just do, I try and be disciplined every week, write a blog article and put something out there. And just, it's one of those things that takes time to build the benefit up. But over time, if you write a decent piece and you link to it, and even just interlinking your own site well, you start to see the SEO benefits of that. And you just, over time, I've slowly seen my kind of traffic build up. And it's kind of one of those things that will always give you benefits in the long run.
Another excellent piece of advice. Okay, the tool top tip. Maybe a collaboration tool, a social media plugin, a phone app, or just a way of working. Is there a cool little tool you use that makes you and your team more efficient from day to day?
So one tool that I guess I couldn't live without is one called Wunderlist. It's a fairly simple to-do app. And I just spend my life kind of on the desktop app and the mobile app between that. Like any time I think of something that he's doing, it just goes on there. And then it's just out of your mind and not to worry. And then I'm constantly, when I'm at work on my desktop, I'm kind of rejigging it, constantly like thinking about, trying to optimize my week, I guess. So it's been around a little while, but it does everything I need in a to-do list app.
Nice. Then the growth top tip. If you met someone today who's focused on growing their e-commerce business from 100 orders per month to 1,000, what would be your number one tip for them?
So I guess for this, I have to say something around UX design, as it's kind of the area I'm in. And I guess if you've still not done it before, one of the most amazing ways to see what people actually do on your website is to run a user test. There are plenty of pay-as-you-go user test tools out there. And just the ability to see people moving through your site and behaving as real people do and not behaving how you assumed they might gives you so much insight into how you actually need to think about how your message is coming across and how people are seeing your products. So some of the pay-as-you-go tools, there's one called User Feel, which isn't that cheap, but has quite a lot of options of customization on it. It's like $50 to $100 per test, depending on which platform, which device you're using. If you're really on a budget, there's one called userbob.com, which you can get 5 users doing a 5-minute test of your site for $25. And I've written a bit in the past about how to do good tests and write good test tasks, but they're just to start with, you don't have to worry about that. Just start with the simplest task, which is go and buy a product on my site and just watch people, how they get on trying to buy a product.
Simple as that. Excellent. Matt, before we say goodbye, could you please let the listeners know where they can find you and your business on the web and social media, please?
Yeah, so I'm Matt Ish. Mattish.com is my website, sorry, MATTISH.com. That's where you can find my website. And I'm, like I say, weekly publishing UX design articles, largely focused around e-commerce as well. On Twitter, I'm at ishmatt, so that's kind of a reverse of my URL. And also, if you want a copy of my book, you can get it on Amazon. All the sort of print, Kindle, audio stuff are on Amazon. However, if you want the full illustrated print version as a PDF, that's on my site at mattish.com. And if you use the code MASTERPLAN, you can get 30% off that as well. So that'll be available for, I don't know, about a week or so after this podcast comes out. I'll make that offer available. That's
very generous of you. Thank you very much, Matt. And thank you once again for coming on and giving us such clarity into the world of UX and what we should be doing to improve our websites and our conversion rate. It's much appreciated. So thank you, Matt.
No worries. It's been fun.
So nice to catch up with Matt again there and to find out what he's up to and what he's learned over the last couple of years in the world of UX, which some great tips in there about how to improve your mobile conversion rates and around video. So I think video needs to be on that to-do list, needs to be something you're thinking about because it looks like there's it's going to become ever something that customers expect to find on your site. To get your hands on all the tips that Matt shared and the links to the book and details of related episodes, then head over to ecommercemasterplan.com/podcast. We are on a mission to spread this podcast to as many listeners as possible, because the more people we can help, the happier I get. So if you are enjoying the show and you're listening on Apple Podcasts or iTunes, then please do fill in a review on there for us, because that helps us get the show in front of ever more people. And if you're not on Apple or iTunes, then please do share the fact the show exists with your e-commerce friends, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, over a coffee, whatever form it takes. Spreading the word is always good news to me. Have a great week and keep optimizing.
Thank you for listening to the e-commerce master plan podcast. Find out more at ecommercemasterplan.com/podcast.